Hello everybody, welcome to Dr. Deep State. I want to talk today about the gnostic mindset and why it matters. I think people, when they think about the future, some of us are pretty good at getting the long-term stuff. It's probably going to be a new world order. Probably will look something like the United Nations meditation room, moving toward the light, Along the way, it might look a little bit more like the murals at the Denver International Airport. But the short-term stuff, people really stink at the short-term stuff. You've probably noticed people throw a lot of spaghetti against the wall. Finally, something sticks. They don't like to talk about all the rest of the spaghetti falling down the wall, but the stuff that sticks, oh boy, they like to point to that. I think insight into the Gnostic mind and the way I'm going to present it will create a little bit of logic. A system toward where we're moving. So I want to talk about the Gnostic mindset. I'm going to suggest that there are two motor forces working in history. They have different sources and work toward different directions. The best sources, I think, for getting the Gnostic mindset came from the first half of the 20th century. Most of them are German. Some of this hasn't even been translated. But there was a complete fascination among the intellectual elite about they saw so many events throughout history that were tied to apocalypticism, tied to mysticism, tied to alchemy, tied to hermeticism. They started kind of gathering these sources and saying, what do they have in common, and why are they so prevalent during periods of revolution, and where are they heading? And what they came up with is the description of the Gnostic mindset. So I want to share a little bit of that, but I'm going to give you something of my take on how this works, especially to key sources of the Gnostic and the Christian mindset. So Gnosticism flourished between the 2nd and the 5th century AD. And it flourished in conjunction with the development of Christianity. One is a foil against the other. In fact, what developed within Gnosticism is a perfect inversion of Christian doctrine. And that's a long story. Two key sources to understand what's going on in terms of this tension that will be played out throughout history and continues into today. One of the sources, I will argue, is Platos Cave, which had been around a few hundred years before the crucifixion of Christ and the destruction of the temple in 70 AD. It's the critical events that come to a head here. So Plato's Cave. It has been said that the whole of Western philosophy is but a footnote for Plato. That's how powerful Plato is. His signature work is the Republic, and that's how to build this, I would say, totalitarian republic from the ground up. Plato's Republic has become, or has always really been, the blueprint, seemingly, of the elite throughout the centuries. So they hold it very near and dear. And Plato begins his Republic by the analogy of the cave. And I'm sure most of y'all have heard it, but I'll give you a quick one. Little intro. Dark, cave, people are chained up, and they're watching the play, the movie on the wall from a projector. And suddenly somebody becomes unchained, they go to the back, they see the light, they get out, they realize, well, this is a real tree. The one on the wall in the cave is fake, and here's a real rock, and here's a real... So it's that idea. They come back to tell everybody, hey, just up there into the light. You know, this is where the real world exists. These are but forms, and the people don't like to hear that. And some versions, they even kill the messenger. So we could take this story at two levels. When I began Dr. Deep State, I think I introduced the idea that all of history is but, this sort of matrix created by, the powers that be, the dominant oligarchs, and this are sort of running the film projector. They're putting the images on the wall. They're keeping you in the cave. That's one take. The second take is that there is a fundamental reality that's so much bigger than this, and this is but an intimation of the true reality. And that idea of Plato's has just shaken the world ever since. You can't prove it, but the mind or the soul seems to intimate something about it that resonates with the human mind. So that's one piece of information that was out there before the 1st and 2nd century. The second was a sort of newer idea, hot off the press, from Philo. And this is the idea of the Logos. And he was an Alexandrian Hellenized Jew, and he had this idea that the sort of whole of creation can begin with a certain force, and that force would be the motor force of the universe. And Aristotle talked about the first mover, but he's bringing it together in a very fresh and unique way that just, again, rattled the minds of those who received it. So we have the cave, this idea that there's true forms, a true reality, and this is but an imitation. And secondly, that the whole of this universe that we can see can be pulled together into one form. And more importantly, that one signature form that pulls everything together probably exists in the world of the forms, the perfect transcendent world. So now when we get to the 2nd and 3rd century AD, we have two worldviews that are going to adopt the cave and the Logos. For the Christian world, it's, aha, Christ is the Logos. And for a lot of people that don't accept the Bible, they're just thinking, aha, that idea came before the Bible. They just... But for the people, that through the eyes of faith see it, you see John 1:1, he's talking about that. In the beginning, he's creating this idea that there's an eternally begotten sort of Elohim that's creating this thing. And through the eyes of faith, you see the brilliance. This is, for me, everything in the Old Testament that was concealed is now revealed in the New Testament. All of the prophecies, all of the intimations are all coming together in the Logos. Everything in the Old leads to the Logos, and the New reveals what was concealed. Thousands of prophecies perfectly aligning for those that see it in a sense of faith, which are, and they are and always have been the remnant people that see it that way. And the cave is, this is New Jerusalem. This is the new heaven and the earth. This is heaven. This is where God resides. Outside creation. Outside our workings. Now you can think now for a moment, if you can guess, the Jewish way of life revolved around the temple. Jesus predicts, his famous prediction that, kind of got him killed was that not one stone will stand upon another. I am going to be the temple. And that's the whole idea of the Old Testament. You know, we're describing a physical people, a physical land, a physical temple, a physical Israel. And he's trying to get through people's minds that all of that will be fulfilled in me. I will be the new body, and for the believers, they will be the material that I will be working with to make this heavenly Jerusalem. So the Christian idea then gets, quote-unquote, spiritualized in the world of the realms, and Christ will be the Logos that pulls all this together. For the Gnostic mind, you know, if you're familiar with the book of Acts, some of the Hebrews, the Judeans, believed, and some did not. And for those that did not believe, because they wanted everything, just like all of Jesus's disciples, they want a physical temple, they want a physical people, they want a physical rule of the world, as was promised in some of the text in Isaiah and a few in Ezekiel and Jeremiah. So that's what they wanted. That's what their hearts wanted. And what they constructed was something that could exist within Christianity, and it could exist within Judaism, and it could exist within a number of other religions. But it would primarily exist early on when its formation as a foil against Christianity. And for the Gnostics, the motor force of all this is not the creator God of the universe and the Logos as we understand it biblically, but instead it is a God that's remained unseen, that exists out in the perfection of the forms. So the God of the Bible, the creator God of the Hebrews, of the Christians, is considered the demiurge. He is an evil God that created an evil world. It wasn't, everything is an inversion from Genesis to Revelation. So, whereas in the Christian standard Judeo understanding of this, God created the world good, men sinned, the world fell, and awaits rejuvenation of all of creation in the new heaven and the new earth. But for the Gnostic, that idea was unacceptable. So they're going to create a world of their own, and they're able to do it quite well simply by inverting the Bible. So God is evil. He created this evil world, and at some point during this cosmic catastrophe, this Big Bang, when the true God, the transcendent God, he exploded and shattered into a million shards of light. But some of these shards landed on the souls of people that are going to return to this transcendent God. So what you really have, instead of a God that stands outside of creation, you have a God that's a part of creation, a God that will evolve with us if we choose to return to that source. So we participate. And of course, the people that get this through gnosis. They remember the spark, they remember the origin, and these are the elites. But strangely, for these elites that remember and become the leaders of this sect, even though over time they became attached to, you know, the commanding heights of the economy, the powers that be, they still think of themselves as outsiders, as fringe people, as sort of the hideous creature and beauty of the beast, that its beauty can't be understood. So they have this mindset that they're somehow an oppressed minority, even if they rule the world. But they're waiting to come out. They're waiting for their grand opening. So the Gnostic sees the cave as the true transcendent God that is shattered into a million pieces that we must return to. They see the logos, and this is, I'm not going to put everything out here right now. They have a counter logos. They have a counter person that they're gathering over the centuries together to pull this personality into being. And I'm going to wait with that one. And so what we have here, I will argue, is an engine of the universe that comes through, well, essentially the source is outside of creation. And that's what we call the Creator God. And for the Gnostics, the power source is the inverse of that. It's from another realm, and it has another direction. And that direction is the singularity, that all of the shards that are going to return will return and do the work of the entity that they have now created. So in the process of creating, one must overcome the conspiracy of the demiurge to hide the true God, and one must create the God. So they become they become part of divinity as they're pulling together divinity. And that's a rough sketch of these two perfectly inverted world systems. For the Gnostic, Cain is the hero. The serpent is the hero. And the finishing of this story will be not a singularity in the body of Christ, but it will be the singularity in, I'll just say it, Adam Kadon. And that's the singularity. So I'm going to wrap this up here, but for the Gnostics, the second, third, fourth century, at times they were a bigger sect than the Christianities, and at times they were persecuted. When Christianity, became part of the empire after Constantine, they were increasingly persecuted, and they bear the scars of this persecution. And then during Christendom, having to go underground, they bear the scars of this. They truly hate this demiurge. It's a motor force within them. And for them, when you have, and I'm talking about, this is not the kind of Gnosticism you see in textbooks. I'm giving you some of that, but I'm giving you like the mindset of the Dark Order. They're motivated by the hatred for this demiurge. And when they're truly initiated, they see a light. It's a counter light. They got the charisma and everything going on, and they want to change the world, and their reason to be is to help to be a part of this eschatology, this singularity. And sometimes that's known as the great work. And so many times when we dig into things like the English Revolution, the French Revolution, World War I and World War II, we can bring together a mindset that's really driven by the hate of not only the demiurge, but the political order of the demiurge. And in some sense, a sort of light Gnostic, or you might call it the light lodge, they want to destroy and able to rebuild a new order. But for the true members of the Dark Order, they're happy to destroy just for the sake of destroying. That's how profound their hatred of the demiurge is. So what I want to do is bring this together a little bit more for you the next time we get together. So, whoa. So for now, this has been Dr. Deep State. I hope everybody is doing well, and I hope to catch you soon. Okay, see everybody.